My life in Los Angeles was a dusty, predictable grind of unread screenplays and stale coffee. I, Leo, a 30-year-old aspiring filmmaker, lived solely for the next great story, but inspiration had been a ghost. Then, Seraphina moved into the apartment next door. She arrived quietly one humid July afternoon, carrying only a beaten-up guitar case and a few boxes of vintage vinyl. Her presence was immediate, vibrant and unsettling, like a sudden burst of color in a monochrome film. Sarah, with her wild copper-red hair and eyes the color of sea glass, possessed a charisma that drew every ounce of light in the small courtyard toward her. She was evasive about her past, claiming only that she needed a break from things. Yet, sometimes when she was gardening, she would absent-mindedly hum a complex hypnotic melody, a tune that felt both globally familiar and intensely personal. We quickly fell into a routine of late-night talks on the fire escape, sharing cheap wine and confessions about the future we both desperately craved. She craved silence and anonymity. I craved the spotlight of cinematic success. One evening, I confessed that I had been struggling for a year to find the core story for my debut film, something genuinely explosive and unforgettable. She looked at me, a faint, sad smile touching her lips. "Be careful what you look for, Leo," she warned, her sea glass eyes suddenly dark and ancient. "Some stories aren't meant to be told. Some stories are burial sites." Her mystery became my obsession. She was the fuse my life had been missing. Our connection intensified rapidly, fueled by the shared boundary of the fire escape and the dangerous allure of her secrets. Sarah was magnetic but volatile. Moments of pure, unbridled joy would abruptly crash into deep, paralyzing fear if a stranger lingered too long near her door. I realized she wasn't just hiding from a bad relationship or a debt. She was hiding from the world. She started showing me notebooks filled with musical notations, intricate melodies that she refused to play on the guitar, claiming they were too loud. Her musical genius was undeniable, and the depth of her artistic despair resonated deeply with my own creative frustration. I began writing again, the words flowing freely, powered by her presence. I knew the protagonist of my new screenplay was her, or at least the idea of her, a genius hiding in plain sight. I called the script "The Siren's Stillness." My goal, dormant for years, was finally within reach, electrified by her essence. One humid evening, while sorting through her vinyl, she pulled out a rare, scratched-up 45. "Listen to this," she instructed, her voice flat. The song that crackled to life was a haunting, synth-heavy track I vaguely remembered from years ago, a one-hit wonder from an artist who had vanished abruptly. As the distinctive, ethereal vocals filled the small studio, I watched Sarah. A small, crescent-shaped scar on her left wrist, usually hidden by a bracelet, was clearly visible. It matched the intricate, specific detail I had once read in a scandalous tabloid exposé years before. My heart dropped, cold and heavy. The melody on the vinyl wasn't just like Sarah's humming. It was her voice, distinct and unmistakable. I spent a terrifying hour online, comparing old news articles with her current features. The truth hit me with the force of a tidal wave, confirming the most scandalous cinematic possibility. Seraphina wasn't just a quirky neighbor. She was Aura, the globally celebrated, critically acclaimed musician whose massive success had abruptly ended 5 years ago after a highly publicized overdose and subsequent death. The official story, the one that had dominated international headlines, was that Aura had succumbed to addiction in a Paris hotel. The juicy, scandalous rumor at the time was that her controlling manager, Victor, had been involved, either in her death or in a massive insurance fraud scheme. Sarah, the girl next door, was the dead icon. She hadn't died. She had staged her death, likely with help, to completely erase the suffocating, destructive celebrity identity. The crescent scar, the copper hair, the sea glass eyes. It was all her. When she returned, carrying a bag of groceries, I was sitting silently on my couch, the vinyl album cover, featuring Aura's young, globally recognizable face, propped up on the coffee table. The moment her eyes met mine, all pretense vanished. Her face drained of color, reflecting the terrible, terrifying reality of the situation. Her silence confirmed my catastrophic, world-breaking discovery. Sarah sank onto the couch, abandoning the groceries, the raw truth hanging heavy and thick in the air. She confessed everything in a torrent of whispered details. The crushing weight of fame that had felt like suffocation, the ruthless exploitation by her manager Victor, the constant pressure to perform until she genuinely wanted to die. The staged overdose and death had been a desperate, complex escape orchestrated by a handful of trusted allies, granting her the one thing the world would never give Aura: silence and anonymity. "Victor didn't kill me, Leo," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "He owns me. He owns the music, the name, and the entire narrative of my death. If the world knows I'm alive, he can sue me for billions in fraud, and I will lose everything: my freedom, my anonymity, and maybe my life to the chaos again." The truth of the scandal was intensely personal, a raw emotional tragedy disguised as a high-profile mystery. She looked at me, her beautiful eyes pleading. "You are the only person who knows, Leo. Your script, your goal, it can't happen. If you tell my story, you achieve your cinematic success, but you send me back into the fire. You destroy the only peace I've ever found." The air crackled with the impossible choice. My goal versus her life, my ambition versus our love. The stakes were no longer artistic. They were existential. The confrontation ended in a desperate embrace, a binding pact sealed by fear and forbidden love. We agreed that the truth, her survival, had to remain buried. But I couldn't abandon my screenplay. It was the story of a lifetime, and it was now too deeply interwoven with my love for her. We found a scandalous, painful compromise, a dangerous path toward my goal. I continued writing The Siren's Stillness, but I fictionalized the core scandal, turning the famous musician into a politician's daughter who faked her death to expose a corporate conspiracy. A safe, if less emotionally honest, narrative. But the emotional core, the dialogue, the raw poetry of the character's despair, that was all Sarah. We spent weeks in a state of tense, beautiful collaboration, working in the shadow of her massive secret. She helped me craft the character, unknowingly contributing to her own fictional resurrection. Our days were intoxicating, fueled by the feeling that we were the only two real people in a world built on lies. Our love, born of secrecy, was fiercely loyal. Yet every time I typed a scene, I felt the sharp sting of betrayal, knowing I was using her tragedy to further my goal. We were achieving something unforgettable together, but we knew our happiness was contingent upon the durability of a global lie, and that made every stolen kiss bittersweet. The tenuous balance we had maintained shattered in late September. Sarah had grown careless, too accustomed to the anonymity of our little corner of LA. One sunny afternoon, a slick, expensive black SUV idled suspiciously at the end of our street for nearly an hour. The next day, a man I recognized from an old Aura documentary, a former road manager named Rex who was loyal to Victor, was sitting at the coffee shop across from our building, nursing a cold cup, his eyes fixed on our fire escape. Sarah saw him first, through a gap in the blinds. The blood drained from her face, leaving her sea-glass eyes wide with pure, paralyzing terror. "Victor knows," she whispered, instantly recognizing the threat. "Victor always sends someone to clean up his loose ends. Rex wouldn't be here unless they suspect I'm alive." The happy, stolen moments were brutally extinguished. The threat wasn't a hypothetical legal fight anymore. It was an imminent physical danger. The weight of my ambition crashed down on me. My finished, polished screenplay, The Siren's Stillness, was sitting on my desk, ready to be submitted. If I succeeded, the resulting media storm would inevitably uncover the parallels, and Victor would connect the dots straight to Sarah. The price of my dream was suddenly her life. We had to act fast. She realized that her sanctuary was poisoned, and that the only way to save us both was to disappear entirely, immediately. The decision was swift and devastatingly final. Sarah knew she had to disappear not just from the apartment, but from the entire continent, vanishing into a new, deeper level of anonymity to protect herself and to protect me from Victor's inevitable scrutiny. We spent her last evening together, not speaking of the future, but simply existing, trying to etch the memory of happiness into our souls. The tragic beauty of her sacrifice was overpowering. The next morning, she was gone, leaving only the old, scratched Aura vinyl and a single handwritten note. "Live your story, Leo, and never look back. My stillness is yours now." Heartbroken and resolute, I drove straight to my agent's office. I pitched the siren's stillness with a ferocious intensity born of grief and desperation, pouring the entire raw emotion of my lost love into the project. The concept, a political conspiracy using a faked death, was instantly cinematic, scandalous, and irresistible. The script was bought in a massive career-defining deal within 48 hours. I had achieved my goal. My first major film was greenlit, and my life changed overnight. The film was guaranteed to be a blockbuster, making me the success I had always dreamed of being. But as the accolades began to pour in, the victory felt cold, hollow, and irrevocably tragic. The film, The Siren's Stillness, premiered 2 years later to critical and commercial acclaim. It was hailed as a masterpiece, a raw, emotional, and unforgettable cinematic debut. Leo, the small-time filmmaker, achieved every one of his professional goals, becoming a recognized, successful voice in the industry. The happy ending of my professional life was secured, but the cost was absolute. I never heard from Sarah again. I moved out of the old apartment, bought a house, and built the life of success we had once only whispered about. But every time I saw the film on a screen, or read a glowing review of the script's haunting emotional honesty, I felt the deep, persistent ache of her absence. The character on screen, though fictionalized, was a living memorial to the woman I loved and lost, a gorgeous immortalization of her pain and her sacrifice. One quiet Tuesday, I received an unmarked package containing an ancient, rare orchid, the exact flower Sarah used to grow in our courtyard. There was no note, no sender address, but the message was clear. She was alive, she was safe, and she had seen my success. The knowledge brought a wave of profound, realistic joy. My happy ending. But the fact that I could only share it with an empty chair, with a ghost of her memory, sealed the experience as the most beautiful, bittersweet tragedy of my life. My story was forever famous, and my love was forever silent.